Hello, gentlemen and gentlemen, to another instalment of the AshenCast with your host, a gentleman of leisure, and of course our usual lurking in the shadows, ShadowedSin. This week we are interviewing someone from the Legion, Doublehex himself. So we're going to plunge right into the interview, and so say hi, guys.
For having me.
Hello, my children.
And we're going to go straight in, because the big news, of course, being the release date is finally upon us. Practically just a day away now, depending on your time zone, of course. But so, I assume everyone's excited.
Excited might be some of an understatement at this point.
There is only Zool. Yeah, I'm excited.
I mean, I've joined the guild a while ago, so I've only really been aware of the game for a couple of months by comparison. So, I mean, how long have you two been waiting for then for this moment?
I first heard about Guild Wars 2 about 3 years ago when there was like a video. The first announcement trailer was posted on like Kotaku or something, and I've been checking it out for over all that time. I've become really excited. Around 2 years ago, I think it was like around the time of World of Warcraft Cataclysm. I had become wicked excited about that on that point. So it's probably around 2.5 years I've been really anticipating this game. That I've been talking about joining the Guild Wars 2, role-playing Guild Wars 2 and stuff like role-playing Guild Wars 2 and being the hype train for all that point. 2.5 years, that's a long time to wait for a game.
Yeesh, that is. How about
I
you,
have
Shadow?
waited since it was announced. Back in 07.
How long was that ago?
They announced Guild Wars 2 around the same time they announced Eye of the North. I was casually following it for about 2 years, until 2009, when they put out the first pre-alpha build trailer, and that's when I was like, hey, I should get my friends together from a guild for a game that might not come out for 4 years.
All those years of sweat
And look what you
tears.
guys have into.
Blood and tears, all for this moment. I mean, even a last-minute stress test, to my surprise. They're really trying to get prepared. I mean, they've been quite heavy and extensive, and people have been enjoying them, getting on, making sure they report all the bugs. I mean, from the enthusiastic community, I'm guessing it might actually be relatively bug-free. I mean, no game's bug-free on launch, but I think they're making a good whack at it, to say the least.
Yeah, it's glad to see MMO that's actually treating a beta as an actual beta and not as a glorious early launch. I mean, they actually are trying to find bugs. They are testing the servers. They are trying to balance all the classes before the game comes out. So it's really a big sigh of relief to find a game that's actually trying to act like a beta test, like a beta test, where there's a bunch of bugs that need to be fixed, where there's a bunch of kinks to work out, and the players need to help find them, and they're testing out the servers. I mean, and they're doing so many stress tests. I mean, this last stress test was so last minute. I didn't even know about it until my officer told me about it a couple hours after the fact, asking me what I did. And I was like, stress test? So, I was glad to see they're doing so many of these.
I think except for the one I jumped on yesterday, I missed every single stress test because I've been working during all the time they've been holding them. But I'm going to be honest, I do see some possibilities where there's going to be some problems, but they're minute. Guild Wars 2 is going to have a fantastically smooth launch. It's not going to be another Hellgate London. It's not going to be another Vanguard or AOC. Everything is solid. They've implemented all these features they've talked about, and they've been very upfront about the features that they may not include at launch, such as the level 80 areas, which I've heard, not confirmed, and they may not have those at launch, but they may implement them in a patch. But these guys are being very open about the fact that they are actually releasing this stuff, and we're not having to pay them anything but the initial price for it. We're not paying them like an actual $15, $30 waiting for this stuff to come out. They're putting this out on their time and their dime, and all we have to do is play the game and give them, appropriate feedback as players.
Which is probably one of the main features I actually got attracted to the game in the first place. It's like, wait, this is an MMO. Really good story, really good gameplay, and you pay once. I was like doing a double take, like, what?
Yeah, I think that's what is going to give Guild Wars 2 a big advantage over the other big name MMOs besides its totally different gameplay. It's just that there's no sub fee. You buy it once and you play it forever. I think that has a great deal of appeal to a lot of people. People just want to buy a game once and be done with it. I think the fact that they put most of their maintenance and update fees via an optional cosmetic shop is some of a stroke of genius, because role players love to play Bobby with their characters. They love to make them look awesome, make them look cool. They have no problem paying money for it. So I think that way is a stroke of genius, and they are going to be, in a few months' time, rolling in the dough with money. They're going to probably ask themselves, what are we going to do with all this money? What type of awesome updates can we do with all this money? So I'm expecting very good things in the future as more people buy the game, and of course more people start getting invested in the gem shop, and thus more money for the internet to do really awesome updates and stuff and expansions.
I mean,
the other thing, just sorry to cut you off there. There's the other thing of the fact that if they do like the way how Elder Scrolls does its DLC, then they can basically add extra content. Maybe charge like $10 for it for a few extra hours, or the zone. But then this way, players can go, well, I don't need that zone, or I don't need that loot. It doesn't affect me whatsoever. But by doing stuff like that, plus the expansion, then they can maintain their cash flow, produce new content. I'm not talking about like new events or new something. I'm talking like completely new dungeons and stuff like that, or like the combo pack they released for Guild Wars 1. That kind of stuff is not really necessarily to play, it's just fun to play, and they can do that with Guild Wars 2, and they can keep funneling it, and at the end of the day, the player is not captured in this pricing scheme that requires them to even have access to the game, which is one reason why Guild Wars 2, in a lot of ways, is more favorable to the consumer than any other MMO out there.
Yeah, I mean, that way was at the front of the wave in terms of the pay-to-play or free-to-play model that all the MMOs are doing now. Pretty much, if you're not World of Warcraft, you're doing free-to-play. World of Warcraft has some of a cash shop of all those mounts and cosmetic pets. So it was a very move on way back in Guild Wars 1 to say, hey, while players don't want a monthly fee, they'll buy tons of different cosmetic things for their characters. So it really was a good move. So they are going to be influencing in a much even bigger way with Guild Wars 2 of their business model.
I can see them stealing away a lot of other people at the end of the day, because it comes down to it, the game's so long awaited, and I mean it's finally here after all this waiting, and it's actually a case of one-time payment, which I know I keep saying, but it's just such a casual thing, because you can jump on it any time and come back any time, because you know that you won't have to pay extra. You don't feel like you have to play it, because my money's running out in a couple of days. It's like, no, just play as long as you want. That's what the game's all about.
Exactly.
Have fun.
Exactly. It's that very believe I think on that that they don't feel like they're stuck at the hip to the game, to their account. They can play whenever they want because of no sub fee. I think that it's going to let players to play even more so, because they don't feel that attachment. They won't feel like a job. It won't feel like a commitment. It'll actually feel like a hobby again. So I think you see players play even more because hobbies are fun until they're But the jobs, you don't go on a job longer than you have to. So you find players will play even more so. So, of course, people throw even more money at a game that they play a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. The game is literally within arm's grasp. It's there for us, waiting. After all this time.
Oh, God.
Finally here, darlings. It's finally here. But now, plunging into our interrogation of our guest. First things first. Where you from? What's your guild?
Well, my guild is the Legion, which is a roleplay oriented guild that's has influence from a little bit of Arthurian mythology, and it's something of a military guild, but it's also something of a cloak and daggers, and it's not very easy to simply say what the Legion is in terms of categories. It simply is what it is. But where I'm from Boston, so you can probably tell by the accent and stuff.
So I mean, I mean, we've been noticing that a lot with guilds. I mean, we've had sort of vigilantes with a lot more under the surface. We've had roaming tradesmen that actually cult. There's a lot of good sort of like this is what we may look like on the surface, but once you get into it, I mean, I'm getting that vibe somewhat. I mean, I assume that it's like military guild, but there's something more under the edge, under the surface. If you just take a proper look, I assume.
So, well, the thing that differentiates my guild from the average vigilante guild is that I think essentially that we don't see them. The league doesn't see itself as a vigilante guild, and there is some merit to that argument. They see it as a authentic organization, despite the fact all their members that are fallen legionnaires and not just recruits. They have forsworn any sort of allegiance to any of the 5 kingdoms, if you will, any of the 5 masons. They have, for certain that, thrown that away. They are dedicated only to the Legion. And though they do what they feel that the Legion has to do to protect Tyria, even if it's not necessarily in the best interest of the other bases. But the Legion, they still see them as legitimate. They still see them as a force of good. They might be, or they might not be, depending on how our story goes. I think that way is the interesting thing that differentiates our vigilante theme from other guilds, is that we're not a gang. We're not a bunch of a dozen men and women taking the law into our own hands. We're not upholding the law. We're upholding the peace. We are not a ragtag group. We are armed men. We are armed. We are trained. We have training camps. We're only a couple hundred recruits right now, but the Legion will grow to the thousands, and it's going to
we are Legion
be amazing
for the greater good.
Exactly, yeah, and the Legion is going to be this big organization that I think will bring us some very interesting narratives in terms of how the guilds deal with this big neutral vigilante-esque organization that bows to no man, no king, and bows to no crown. It's just ours to itself, and what the Legion or the Grand Master Volgrad, my character, sees as what is best for Tyria. So I think that's going to be very differentiates ourselves from other vigilante guilds. Other vigilante guilds are a gang. We're a military.
I mean, before we get too buried in the proper meaty part of the RP stuff, because we got to verge into that later on, let's get the sort of OCC stuff done first. I was thinking, I mean, we got your guild, the Legion. And I was just wondering, how about the guild leaders? I mean, how many of you in these sort of upper echelons organising all this, getting all this stuff together?
Well, that would just be me myself, and then with my officer, Scalvjorn, who, if you played Age of Conan on the Wikania server, which was the unofficial RP PvP server for Age of Conan launch, you would know him as Ahern from the very well-known Clan Elkhorn. And that was how I got to know him. We kept in touch after I decided to leave the game, and he was really excited about Guild Wars 2, and he was tired of being a guild master. He doesn't have time in his hands to be a guild master with a full-time job and school, but he wanted to be in some sort of management role. So I said, well, you're going to join my guild. Why don't you just become an officer? And so that's how that had worked out. And originally, one of my friends from my previous World of Warcraft guild I ran, Verdict, he helped co-found the guild, and he was going to be my officer as well. But he decided to step down and just become a regular member. So it's just me and Scalvjorn right now who's running the guild. But I hope as time goes on, we add more officers to the ranks.
I mean, how long have this guild been around? I mean, I know the Ashenfold was founded a while ago. I mean, you seem to be waiting the game for a long time. So when did you properly get the guild formed together?
I think it started around mid-July of 2011, around July 18th, if my original engine site is to have any merit to it. I mean, we first started 10 was with engine, but our problem was that the limit on the amount of text or modules or text boxes that you can have as a free member. That was a problem for us because if you look on our website, you'll find there's tons and tons and tons of individual pages. We have tons of lore. I mean, this book 1 alone, which is the novelized beginnings of the guild, it's almost reached 100 pages so far. There's like 7 pages alone, and the maximum amount of modules you can have on a free website, 20. So that wasn't working out. So that's when we decided to go to I decided to go to webmastering and start my own website, web domain, get a web domain started up, and that happened around early August, on August 11th, 2011. So the guild, as I've been trying to get it started up, it entered the web space for about a year. It's about a year and some weeks. I've done that. First did that.
Now, this is what really impresses about Guild Wars, is the number of pre-launch guilds that are really holding their own together. I mean, I tried to be in a pre-launch guild for not Lord of the Rings Online, the Old Republic, and unfortunately lots of guilds crashed before the game came out, which was a real shame. But that's what I'm really impressed about Guild Wars. All the communities are really hyped up about this game. They've really kept close-knit.
I think that really has a lot to do with the general community. The community really has a real boundary, I think. Not just the roleplay community, but the entire Guild Wars 2 community itself. Even with some of the stupidity that tends to happen on the GW2 Guru, there's a real sense of camaraderie and brotherhood with the Guild Wars 2 early fan base. Because we were waiting for this game together for 5 years. We waited for this game to come out together. So I think that form of boundary, that form of we're all fans in this together, has really helped keep the guild together. I think the semi-unique lore that the internet has written up for the game also helps, because a lot of role players, including myself, sees a ton of potential with what we guilds can work with here. There's a lot to work with on both the lore from Guild Wars 1 and that written for Guild Wars 2. So I think it's all that potential and that fan brotherhood stuff that really helps keeping the pre-launch guilds together.
I mean, have you noticed that? Honestly, I mean, you seem to have more ties to the community than I possibly ever can. So, I mean, have you noticed that it's very tightly packed? Everyone seems to know each other. Everyone tries to keep along. I mean, there's a number of websites dedicated to it. So, have you experienced anything like that, Sin?
The amount of tightness between the community is interesting, because I think what happens is you have a lot of people coming from other games who have connections with each other at the same time that brings a lot of baggage. I mean, anyone who saw the explosion of the Lord of Dross community for Tor knows for a fact that, a lot of us in Ashenfold were like, oh crap, let's not inherit any of these problems. It's nothing against anyone on Tor. But I remember during around, like March and April, all of my friends from Tor were having all these walls saying, don't go near me with your drama. So I was like, oh crap, it's coming our way. But the good thing is that, except for some rumors and people doing the usual role player thing, where we basically like to bitch and talk about how someone's wrong about whatever style of RP, it's been pretty good and silent for a while. A lot of us get along.
Well, it seems well founded. I mean, you seem to have been planning this for a while now. So then, well, you've had an entire year, and in the 5 years before that, waiting for the actual game. So, I mean, how many members have you got now? Then, I mean, how big is the Legion starting off with?
Legion will be entering Guild Wars 2 with nearly 20 members. We have about 16 members, and one who's pretty much done with his forum post-by-post based in-character interview. We'll be entering with nearly 20 members, which is a heck of a lot more than we had a couple months ago, when we had pretty much only like 4 members. We pretty much exploded around the beginning of the month. There was an instance where I woke up and went to the website and I found 4 applicants that applied within 5 hours of each other. So it is after a year of this struggling uphill to get members, to get the word out, to get people to join, to get people to apply. It's just such a breath of relief and fresh air to find like so many people who are so excited, and have so many high quality members and role players join my guild. It's a great sense of satisfaction.
Well, yeah, especially with all the excitement as the build-up, the betas and things like that. I mean, there's been a lot more activity. The forums are really on fire lately, so it must have been great for the guild. And all of a sudden, people start paying more attention. They want to get into a guild. They want to get ready. They want to RP. Everyone's waited long enough. They want a community.
Yeah, I think that. Okay, I'll go now.
Going to chime in. Another thing I was going to chime in is that a lot of guilds are going through that build-up phase right now. And the one reason why probably, I'm just going to say this here, a lot of people probably wonder why in the world does Ashenfold have so many members. It's because we went through that last year. We spent all of last year building up our power base. And so everybody else is coming in now and wondering, why in the world is why in the world are all these established guilds got so many members? The answer is they started earlier, they're more established, they have more lore, they have a greater sense of who they are. If you're coming into the game right now, the one reason why your guild's going to flounder for that first month is because you waited for the very last minute to get your guild together. And it's not anyone's fault. It's just that you can't really expect to gain during the time of launch and all the chaoticness. I'm sorry if I'm bringing this up out of the blue, but it is something for guilds who have been here for a while and the guilds who are joining or getting members. It is something very nice to actually get those members to get in there and get role playing. But I do think, because we talked a little bit about drama in the community, I do think that there is going to be a sense of people who maybe resent each other because they don't get members or because members go and they multi-guild with other people. And that's kind of out of nowhere, I'm sorry.
Oh, true. It happens in every game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a matter of when members are looking for a guild, and they'll be going through the guild recruitment forum. They'll be looking for people with probably the most posts, because they're going to assume the people with the most posts are A, the most popular, and B, the most well established, because they've been there longer for time for the post to come up. So a lot of the members are not going to go for the brand new threads and the brand new guilds. They're going for the old guilds. So I'm not saying to the cry that none of the new upstart guilds are bad or anything. I'm sure they're some very good upstart roleplay guild. I think it's just a matter of when you are rushed to find a guild before the game comes out, you're just in a rush to, you're going to look for the bigger numbers. You're going to look for those big numbers because you're going to think big numbers will bring about high quality.
What it comes down to, it's just the community's been alive for so long. It is legit, because I mean, there's probably people out there who've seen these guilds started, saw the initial post and just saw them slowly build. So it makes perfect sense that you'd look for something that's got the strongest base. And starting to move now into the sort of roleplay aspect of your guild. I mean, it seems it's heavy. I mean, you've already said there's a novelized origin of the guild. So combining the last sort of two questions here, I mean, I'm guessing you're not a light RP. I mean, are you light, medium, heavy RP guild, and what's the background behind it all?
Well, I like to think of roleplay labels as I do political party affiliations. If you can summarize your RP philosophies in one word, you're doing it wrong. But I mean, we definitely lean. If you have to categorize us, we are definitely heavy roleplay. If the only reason being, roleplay is why Legion exists. Guild's purpose is to roleplay, to tell a story of other players, and have a lot of fun doing it. We're here to create a memorable narrative of story arcs to have players really invest in their characters, and we'll have a grand old time in the process. So if you want to label me, I guess heavy roleplay will be the way to do it.
That's good, because I've seen a lot of heavy to medium. I mean, there's not very, there's nothing wrong with being a light RP guild, of course. It's just a case of there's a lot of lean towards the sort of heavy lore-based guilds, and everyone really loves the lore of Guild Wars 2, so they love making their own stuff and everything. It's the creative ideas people are coming up with is brilliant. I mean, like I said, we've interviewed quite a few varying guilds. We've never had, so far, I don't think we've any guilds that have the same plan. It's always been mercenary-esque with some sort of agenda. It's been travelers who are actually secretly cultists. This is just so much you can play around with the lore, which makes it fantastic for guilds like yours and ours. It's just there's so much to use, so much to do.
I think that's one of the great benefits of having a lore as well varied and as well written as Guild Wars as Guild Wars 2, in that you have so much to work with. And even with my guild, who pretty much they just work with off the lore of Guild Wars 1 prophecies, there's still so much you can work with in creating your history and creating a unique character for your guild. I mean, guilds have character, they have personalities, even before a single person joins, besides the guildmaster, they have a personality. So I know we see so many guilds with unique personalities and personas. This really is a credit to not just the role-playing community, but also the lore team over ArenaNet for creating a world that can inspire.
There's lots of flavour out there, lots of flavour.
Yeah, I think it's a very rich menu for new roleplay, for new people going to Guild Wars 2 to select a nice guild to dive right into.
So moving on to your guild now. I mean, because the Legion, very strong military style name, almost biblical with the reference, of course. But its main thought is, what is the backstory behind them? I mean, who are these people in character? Who are these people? I mean, with the name at the Legion, I mean, are you Char exclusive or is it multi-race, that kind of thing? What is the background? What is the core reason for your guild's existence? I mean, you've already touched on the idea they're like not vigilantes. They are a force for good. They are a military corps.
Yeah, okay, well, in character, the guild story dates back to Guild Wars 1 Prophecies, right in the middle of the post-Syrian Ascalon story arc. Lukud Umber and Livia Winstray are sent out by Prince Ruvik to scout beyond the wall to, try to accrue information for potential attack and potential invasion to push back the Char. Because King Alduin is always arrogant and he thinks that the victory's right around the corner, so that's what they're being sent out to do. So they go beyond the wall, and then they are met by the Burning Lady, which is sort of the divine matriarch of the Legion, sort of lady in King Arthur's laying the water to the Burning Lady's Legion. So, and from there, the Burning Lady gives them the big mantra to guard the realm, and the Legion is born. From there, they join up with the Ascalonian Exodus over the Seven Peaks to Krita. Then they, due to a matter of necessity, because they lost so many members thanks to the Stone Mantle and the Centaur raids, they pretty much joined with the White Mantle out of necessity. And during the war in Krita, they managed to break away and help and aid in the liberation of Krita from the White Mantle. But sometime between that and that big high note where the Legion is finally truly independent, it was meant to be, between how they get thousands of members through all of the big human kingdoms. Somewhere between that and Guild Wars 2, the Legion dies. It ceases to exist. It fails somehow. And that's going to be a big mystery when we go into 2. When we start off when Vargred Three Trees is by the Burning Lady again, and the Legion is resurrected. We're going to ask the question through the story: what happened to Luca Umber season? What happened to it? Where did it go? And so that's pretty much the big backstory of the Legion in character. And the funny thing is that when I was writing the outline for Book 1, when I was trying to write the chapters for it, there are a lot of references, unintentional happy accident references to the Book of Exodus and Moses. I mean, Moses was said to have a speaking disorder, possibly a stutterer. Lukud doesn't have this disorder, but he doesn't have a very good word. He has trouble speaking. He has trouble with being good public speaker. Moses was adopted into the Egyptian royal family. Lukud was born into the noble house of Umber, even if it was a low-ranking house in Ascalon. God came to Moses with the burning bush, and then there's the Legion's Burning Lady. Moses leads an exodus from a desert to a promised land. The Legion helps protect the Ascalon refugees from leaving the Ascalonian wasteland to the promised land of Krita. And so that was a very funny moment. I realized that when I was writing the Book 1, I just decided to put that reference is 2 point, because I just kind of realized, well, I got a lot of unintended references already. Might as well, make it big, more prominent.
Yeah, I did wonder, because I was sensing like a very sort of strong biblical reference there, and it actually makes sense. Actually,
it was very unintended.
Sorry.
It was very unintended, but it was a very happy accident. I think the fact that when I first started, I watched The Prince of Egypt just because I was watching it. And I think that I had a sort of subconscious influence on me.
To great effect, obviously. I mean, you've got yourself a guild, got your members, got the lore established. I mean, good thing you're watching that, right?
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, I draw influences from all sorts of different stories, both historical, mythological, and novels. I mean, I think as a serious writer, I think that every sort of story I encounter has some influences me and inspires me a little, even if it's subconsciously. So I guess you kind of say it is a good thing. I mean, it just sort of worked out that way.
It's brilliant. That's it. Well, you can probably notice a few flavors from when you look around, look at all the different guilds. I mean, everyone's probably picked up some inspiration from somewhere. I mean, I know Shadow's taken tons of stuff from his years of like RP experience, so there's probably tons of stuff subconsciously or consciously he's added in. I mean, would you think so, Sin? Sin? Oh God, we got to sit down.
I'm a bit entranced by something. Sorry.
Just saying that every guild probably got some sort of, either conscious or subconscious influences from other things, that kind of thing. So I was just saying, I mean, do you think that's happened with the AshenCast? I mean, Ashenfold rather.
Can you repeat the question?
I was saying, with all the subconscious influences or intentional influences from movies, legends, that kind of thing. I mean, would you say the Ashenfold's been influenced by other stuff, just like the Legion has?
Ashenfold has been influenced by multiple things, including TV shows, books. A lot of people will probably say, we're some Western Fire ripoff. Actually, in fact, we're a little bit more than that. I mean, I can make comparisons to the Aes Sedai in time with the different objects. I could make references to the Godless Land, where you have a group called the In-Call, and they're called the Battle In-Call, the Hunt In-Call, the Lore In-Call. That was probably an influence for the name. There's also a lot of different things. Lord of the Rings probably has a slight bit of influence with some of the storytelling. Mostly with probably the concept of the Fool being this wronged individual, maybe. No, I think it's more the epicness of what Ashenfold can get. The general feel of Ashenfold is just multiple different influences. I have this knack for just pulling influences just for writing in general. I mean, there's even Call of Cthulhu influences in Ashenfold, specifically with groups like the Najir.
And there's probably a bunch of more influences that you don't even realize or remember that it's just, as you were writing, this sort of came to your head and helped form the Ashenfold Cartel. I mean, there have been times when I was writing a story, I'll be showing it to my friends and family or game criteria, and somebody would say that it sounds a lot like a story or book or movie or whatever that I haven't even watched or read or whatever in like years or in a long time would even come to my mind while I was doing it. I think it's just an aspect of how the human mind works, that it can bring forth all sorts of information that's deep, deep down when you're being creative like that.
Exactly, it's what all the sort of, well, like you said, every guild has different personality, and you probably can blame a load of different influences throughout people's lives when they built it. So, I mean, what's the actual direction for the Legion then, RP-wise? I mean, what was the inspiration for the guild and the development of the guild from a narrative point of view? What was their main objective? They're a Legion, they're going to grow, they're going to get more soldiers, they're going to train, like you said. So answering to No King, what are they up to? What is their main goal?
The main goal is the mantra given to them by the Burning Lady, to protect the realm. And of course, as you can expect, that is open to a great deal of different interpretations and ideas, and that's one of the things I'm really hoping to bring out during our roleplay, is to have a total bunch of different interpretations from all the different races and characters in terms of how do we go about doing that? What does that mean? For example, Lucard Umber, he interpreted the realm as protecting the realm of humanity. He was focused on protecting Kryta, and after he escapes the grip of the White Mantle, Kryta, Alona, and Cantha. With all the five races banded together, they are focused on protecting their realms and their borders. But there are also a bunch of other different races involved. So should they also be looking to those races as well? Should they be looking to those does that goal also include those races that are not as big of an influence on Tyria but are still part of the realm? So I'm really hoping, in terms from what the Legion is about, to try to really challenge that, to add a great deal of ambiguity. There's a great deal of ambiguity within the guild in terms of what happened to the Guild Wars 1 Legion, in terms of what is the Burning Lady. Is she a god? Is she a spirit? Is she a demigod? Is she something in between? Is she something else entirely? And in terms of also what the guild goal is and how to accomplish that and other interesting things. So I don't like things when they're pointed out, and it's like this. I like with stories have a bit of ambiguity and mystery and guessing work. Now, I suppose that Martin's Song of Ice and Fire was a big influence on that, especially with the who are Jon Snow's parents. So I suppose that was a big influence on me in that regard.
That's always got a hand in, I've noticed.
Yeah, Martin was a big influence on. It's probably as a storywriter period. Martin was probably a huge influence on me, as well as Alan Moore, who did Watchmen and Swamp Thing, and Chris Avellone, who did Planescape Torment, Cartel 2, it's a book and the games as well. So I very much delve more into the dark fantasy, and a big challenge for me with the Legion was to balance the dark, mature fantasy with the more lighthearted, epic, good versus evil fantasy that is Guild Wars 2, to find a nice balance between the two, so that the Legion doesn't feel like it's some anomaly in terms of the tone.
A nice shade of grey, so to speak.
Beg your pardon?
A nice shade of grey, so to speak. You're in the middle, it's like it's open to interpretation.
Yeah, I believe any good story will have some grey morality with it, because you have a character who's just all good, who can do no wrong, and that character is boring. Yeah, readers are going to be bored. But you also have villains that are all wahaha evil, and that just doesn't really add all complexity to your narrative. So I think there's always going, with any good story, there's always going to be some gray morality within all the characters. Even with Harry Potter, you can see some humanization aspects of Voldemort. And even Harry Potter really does struggle with what he is meant to be. So I think any good story is going to have some gray morality of all of his characters, even if it is epic fantasy, like Guild Wars 2 is. You can kind of see that now with Divinity's Edge, or the 5 big mascots of each of the guilds, where each of them have their inner conflicts, especially the Lucas Thackeray, He's
That's
definitely
right.
a very complicated character.
Most hated character in Guild Wars history out of Prince Roy. I can already see it happen.
I mean, moving on again, my main focus is this is a lot of lore. It's clearly well thought out, it's clearly well written, it's clearly a strong thing. So my main point here is that how do you mix that with actual member involvement? I mean, I know the Ashenfold have done stuff where a major event, an attack against us was held, and we had to cope with it and adapt to see what happened. Did we prosper, did we fail, and other people rose to positions, some people fell, that kind of thing. I mean, so how do you cope with all this really powerful narrative and mixing it in with a strong story with member involvement?
I think this is really where my history as a tabletop game master helps me a real lot. For my game tabletop campaigns, I would have a more or less planned story arc for each of the acts of my campaigns, and I would sort of guide my players through it. But they would get tough choices with consequences that make a real difference on the story. Things like that, somewhat railroady, but not too much. However, I will not ignore my players' input. I'll listen to all of their role-play conversations for plot hooks. I'd ask them to write up a history of their characters for me to use as a potential subplot. I'd adjust the narrative in advance for their crazy whatever choices they make during each session. So I'll be like, session C is like, okay, there's something here. That's going to affect session F, so I should change that to accommodate. So everything they would do, during scripted events I planned ahead or otherwise, or things that just happened, it would have an effect on the grand narrative, and they would feel great. They would feel like very more heroic, and because of it, because they'd be like, "Wow, what also we did, our twin characters did, he changed the story, and it's probably all the better for it." So I think the same thing will probably happen with the Legion, which will be helped even more so with the slowed down pace of text-based roleplay. Because when you're talking, with all these roleplay going on, you have like 4 hours to do a session, you're in a big rush, and you sometimes miss out on something that player said. Depends on plot hook. With text, it's more casual in terms of pacing. So I can be more visual oriented. I can definitely, I can look at the chat logs and see, oh, that character said something. I'm going to take note of that.
Yeah, key events, key information, things you got to keep looking back on, that kind of thing, which is good because myself, tabletop RP, so I I know the process. It's always been a source of absolutely great fun and great RP. Also instilled instant fear in you when anyone says roll for initiative, of course.
Yes, you just seem to look at my player's face whenever I say, alright, gents, roll. Especially since I tell them to roll something that seems out of context of what's going on. And that's usually when I tell them to roll for something that's going to happen later on. So my players learned to fear me when I said roll, but
like any good GM, you should fear.
Yes. And so we will be having two types of different events within the guild. We'll be having our story events and our general events. And general events are, just the typical guild roleplay events where you just meet out and you do some sort of activity together and you just have fun with it. And it's not going to have a major aspect on the guild's narrative. And we have our story events, which is, where we really progress our guild's story, our guild's current story arc, when we move through our guild's current book. And those are going to be, we'll be DMing through them, and there'll be a couple of, 5 or 6 members who will sign up for that event. That's when they will be very on their toes. But even outside those events, I'll be taking note of what they do and what they say, and what their players tell me they do when I'm not there.
It's very impressive. I mean, clearly it sets you apart from guilds. Like everyone seems to have their own distinct flavor or their own distinct way. So clearly, it sets your guild apart from all the others around you. You're an individual rather than the stereotypically you get in some MMOs, which we are a mercenary guild. We hire out our stuff, and it's like there's so many clones of that. So the fact you've gone straight in there with something full of flavor, full of lore, which is fantastic. And clearly you've got some good background when it comes to tabletop, because that's always good for when telling a story. Because as a GM, you got to learn how to adapt, how to tell a story, but you're not telling them the story. They're acting it. It's just you just put the tools in there. So moving on from that.
Well, it's a little bit both. It's a little bit both. I mean, they are having a huge influence in the story, and sometimes they would totally change the story altogether, pull me below my feet. But I'm also driving through a story. I mean, the best way to put it is that I have a beginning and end in mind, but the middle, that's going to be collaborative between all of us. It's going to be 50% me, 50% the guild. So that's the way I view it, as how I deal with telling a good story with a guild that's somewhat directed. I'm not dictating the story. I'm not railroading them, but I'm kind of directing them and flowing them along in a certain direction. And I'm working, and like any river, it's going to flow which way.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's always good, keeps everything flowing, keeps everything steady. I mean, that's what a guild needs when it comes to lore. So, say anything there, Zane?
I just remade the lore parlay thread quite clear this time that when they do their silly little vote, that if they grandstand, it's going to be a consequence for it. Sorry, if anyone's curious, every time
I can't understand what you're saying.
Yeah, a bit choppy.
Each other because of it. I hate it when I step in. I have to step in like 3 times because there was some implication that there was more OC drama happening. I'm putting my foot down and tell them that they get to do this, or they don't, or they can just they're screwed. But yeah, that's kind of what happens in National. We do a lot of. I don't like to step in and say what happens. I basically act as the hand of God only when necessary. A lot of the times, I just set up the stage, and they're the ones who just goes to what they do, like any good GM does. Good. On a note there, the one thing that I really was happy about when I first read the Legion is the fact that it wasn't just another mercenary guild, because last summer there was like one freaking mercenary guild appearing every 5 days.
Yeah, I know that feeling. So moving on, because we're pressed for time, because we're having a good chat here. But the thing is, just before we move on to the sort of how our guilds might meet and how that might pan out, quick question. You said you used a role system for your role playing, which is, I understand, as a GM, but on a forum, I'm surprised, to tell the truth. I mean, I've noticed some people wanting that, but that's a surprising thing to use, the role system in your guild.
Well, we're not using the role system right now on our forum-based roleplay, because it just would not be really concordant with what you do when you do a text-based roleplay. In terms of when we are in the game, what we'll be doing is we have like something called the Destiny system, and it is a D10 based roll system, and we'll be using a chat-based roll site to all this that we tab into during story events. And it's pretty much you roll a D10, then you add either your might or mystic to the roll, and then the enemy does that role, and whoever has the highest number after the calculation wins. And it's a very straightforward, very easy to use, snappy up this quick system, and it works wonders with telling a story and the role play. Because the interesting happens, and you probably know this with you being tabletop, is that some of the best role play is when the player does not get that natural 10 to do that awesome thing he wanted to do. Of all the things he gets, of all the numbers, he gets a 1. A freaking 1.
That's happened way too
or
much
some
to
other
me.
low
It's painful.
number.
It's painful.
Yes, it is painful, but he's hoping for a 10, and he gets a 1. He gets a freaking 1. So, and even with all his awesome stats, whatever stat attribute he put his numbers into that works with the role, he can't do that awesome thing he wants to do. He has a 1. He's in the corner. His back's against the wall. How does the player or the character, how does he deal with this? And that is when role players get really creative and stories start to get really good and interesting and fun.
Yeah, I have one such
So
example.
the role system really actually helps a lot. So our roles actually helps a lot with a role play, not just because of ending arguments of who shot whom, but also with telling really good, interesting stories.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing we can come up with on the fly. I mean, there was one such incident with my group where it was a case of 40k universe, role play. We panicked, we tried to kill something, we failed, and it ended up with overcharging a laser pack so it would explode, using the glue from a painter's set to make a sticky bomb, which got stuck to someone's glove, which then turned into the way you could deploy it, because then you could stick your hand and take the glove out. It's crazy stuff. Improvise is a great thing.
Sounds glorious. That sounds fabulous.
It was absolutely chaotic and mad, and the GM allowed it, and we're just in the back. And the worst part is, we said we high-fived at the end. He then pointed out, "You both got glue in your hands." We were stuck together like that for 2 sessions. It was industrial glue.
Take Papa Woman to the foyer, and it's gone.
But
I blew up. I'm sure you remind me of the time I blew up the Lion's Arch foyer because the lore was like, I'm gonna take this random person and not do a weapons check. Then she explodes.
Classic. That's what happens in these games. That's a great part of it. It's the great part of tabletop, which you don't really get with text-based, but you can still have tons of fun. But
I think role system really helps with these chat-based systems. Just because it ends the arguments and really just adds as much to role play as it does with tabletop.
Always a good aspect. I mean, sorry to be so pushy about the time and stuff. I just noticed what along because there's some good material here. So moving on to the actual guild conflict, the big bit of meat here for us. I mean, we know about each other's existence as the guilds. I mean, well, maybe not all the information about each other, but I assume that rumours will spread. We'll know about each other. So, whose idea? I mean, what's the idea? I mean, how are you expecting this to pan out? I mean, considering the legal and illegal side of the Ashenfold and stuff, I mean, can you see any of those parts meeting with the Legion? I mean, we have honest tradesmen, we have illegal tradesmen. I mean, what can you see the Legion doing with the Cartel if they were to meet?
Oh, remember, the Legion is not a policing guild. It's not a god guild. It's not affiliated with the Seraph or any of the individual cities. It's worried about the bigger picture. Mostly the dragons, it's a military, so it deals with armies. It deals with big issues. So, an instance in which the Ashenfold Cartel and the Legion would get into conflict with each other would be if, the Ashenfold Cartel is doing something that the Legion feels that is a threat to the greater set of Tyria, which could eventually happen. That's the only time when I imagine that Varga 3 Trees would stick his hand in the big mess that is the Cartel with this secret society.
Not to mention a secret society with multiple different sects, different factions, not to mention outside factions like the Nazrim, the Five Families.
Groups that don't even know about each other.
It's a huge organization that's in the saddles, and I mean the Legion is out in the open. It's a personas the flame, but the flame lets out a saddle that the Cartel can easily strike from. It'll be interesting to see how that story arc would play out.
I mean, being totally biased here, but you hear that coin? A full army. That means they need food, supplies, weapons. So Oxhorn, Silverthorn, get up there. You got work to do, lots to sell.
Actually, there was a recent discussion about Cross Legion's role usage, and there's an implication that Borsk's character might start kicking out people who will show any elements of criminal things. So that's the kind of dynamic we have. Some of the internal factions of the sects actually don't get along that well. They've been forced together because they were acquired by the cartel through legal or illegal means.
Or they don't even know it happened. They can be completely oblivious to the fact. That's the interesting thing about the cartel. You could be working in a school or just on the front lines and healing someone. You have no idea there's this massive secret society linked to you. So, I mean, what possible scope can you two see for the future of the guild, conflict or even interaction? You know, I mean, like I said, we've got tradesmen, we've got entertainers. I mean, we've got taverns, that kind of thing. I mean, hell, there's all sorts of places you can bump into the cartel, and you know, all the sorts of things. It can be social, it can be nice. It can just be two people chatting at the end of the day. You wouldn't know about each other. You know what they're really about.
Yeah, exactly. I think reason we're having so many people to their numbers, you know, that eventually, you know, it's going to be like thousands of people. It's going to be part of the Legion. Have joined its ranks. So I think eventually it'll come to a point where, maybe right off the bat, we'll be interacting with each other and not even know it in characterly. We could be in a tavern you own and not even interact with you that way. So with all of the different hands and parts the cartel it has, it will probably interact at some point without us even realizing it.
The fun thing about interaction with the Legion is we pointed out with the other things of AshenCast is we have the Alliance that we probably need to work a bit more on. The Tyrian Accord, which has about 5 or 6 core guilds, all with different elements to them. So we have groups like, you know, the Cultish, you know, Traveling Caravan, like Keepers of the Phoenix. We have White Aegis, which is a very, you know, militia, very kind of more of a militant good group that was, I think, born out of former serve. I don't remember. Chaos will someday correct me on that. I think Iridescence, which is more of a mercantile mercenary group. They all have different elements. And with groups like the Legion, I really feel that the Legion is kind of more like the Grey Wardens. They have this very dour, militant feel to them. What makes them different than the other groups, they're more of a militant knightly order that is there to defend. You're not really there to defend the land, right? But you're kind of like a defensive group in some way, correct?
Oh yeah, we kind of are defensive. That we are just here to preserve the realm, to keep the peace. But of course, what that means to each individual member of the Legion is going to be different from each other because we're having all of these races with totally different philosophies. And imagine what the humans and the Chargers are going to think about what the mantra to be, of how the interpretation of mantra to be. So, yeah, definitely, it's definitely an offensive guild, but about story arcs that I've planned, I'll definitely have a score on the defensive. So it really is going to be depending on the current story and our current antagonist. But overall, in terms of the grand whole scheme of things, we're not out to conquer lands. We're not out for power. We're just out to keep the peace. Of course, we are going to gain power in the process, unintentionally or otherwise, but that is not our primary goal. But that doesn't mean that we're all goody two-shoes. I mean, to keep the peace, to protect the realm, we're going to do some pretty despicable things. I mean, as you give any big military organization throughout history, you can look at what the Romans did and what the English and French did in the 100 Years' War. You can look at, whenever you bring the military things are going to get dirty real fast. Even though we're a force for good. Oh, pretty, yes. Yeah, so even though we're a force for good, so we're not going to be all goody two-shoes about it.
The weird thing is, I can see the Blade and getting along with these guys. I gotta say that.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Hunt met them and got along with them loud. Though the Hunt is very rowdy, ranking. Though the Jade Ring is a lot quieter, and the Storm Fleet is all off going on the high sea. You see them getting along with Smart Home, you know, a band of travelers, storytellers, and huntsmen who basically brave the depths of Tyria to kill the greatest monsters. That's what they do.
Meanwhile, I'm sat in my den trying to make sure the White Aegis don't come on my turf. God damn it, you got no evidence against me. You hear me, White Aegis? You got nothing on me.
Yeah, but we will not be dealing with you on an individual basis unless you do something that we see threatening like a major city or whatever. Then we're gonna be on your butt. You don't have to worry about that so far. But when you do, oh boy, you're in trouble.
We'll probably see a lot of interaction through the social club that we're going to be running in Divinity's Reach, you know, or the gambling den. It's going to be a lot of base interaction there. So it's going to act a lot like, if anyone's seen the series Babylon 5, a social area where a lot of different powers of the roleplay world or the roleplay universe we're going to be creating will be interacting with each other. And then our guild will be running that establishment. And from there, you'll see interaction in other roleplay bars like the Busted Flagon. And over time, that forms the basis of interaction, and hopefully random interaction plays into that. That's how good roleplay forms.
Yeah, I mean, Valkyrie 3 Trees, he may be the head of this big military group. He's still a Norn, and Norns are known to and play even harder, so he will definitely be a part of that gambling den. Although he's smart, he has enough of his hand on his shoulders not to bet away his entire fortune, especially considering his entire fortune is, going to be linked to the Legion. So he's going to have he's not going to bet away all his money, but he'll have fun times in that den of yours. And so he's definitely going to interact with you at some point. No, Norns don't know it. I don't think Norns know the meaning of the word loan.
That would be a bit of an organ happy. So I mean, coming near the end of the AshenCast now, but the main point is, I mean, finally near the release date, we've got all this sort of stuff working out. I mean, I assume everyone's really pumped for this. You've got your own plans to start up.
Oh yes. We'll start off. Pretty much the first couple of weeks, we're just gonna be playing the heck out of the game. We're gonna have a blast playing the game, and then once all that adrenaline rush, all that excitement is out of our system, that's when I'll start doing the story events and the big scale role play. Up until that point, we're gonna be sprinkling role play every now and then, but for the most part, we'll be playing the game, doing the PvP, doing world versus world, doing the dynamic events, getting to 80, doing the dungeons. But then once we get out of the system, we're gonna start doing the and all the end rolls and stuff.
So yeah, I mean, going to a close then. I mean, wishing the Legion the best of luck. Hope to see you in game when it comes down to it.
Oh,
look out in the bars. There want to be one of a sleazy lot around there. So, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the AshenCast, and this has been Doublehex, our guest from the Legion, who's told us all about it, and we hope to all see him in game, etc. And, well, everyone out there, enjoy the game. It's probably going to be another 2 weeks before I finally get back on here. So I've got lots to report. I want your stories, I want some fun, I want some questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure, my darlings, to report this, and these have been my guests, Doublehex and ShadowedSin.